10 states in our nation that have any kind of Muni tax system. Of those 10 states, Ohio is the worst. The next closest to us as far as forms is Pennsylvania, and they have a grand total of 3 forms for their entire state. We have almost 300 in the state of Ohio. So we're about making Ohio competitive, making it business friendly, and we think that this is a huge step in the right direction of how we're able to achieve that. And Rep. Henne and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
How has this bill changed from the version you had last session?
Well, we talked about the interested party meetings that we've been doing for the last 2 years. We introduced 601 in December, knowing that it would not be passed, but we wanted to have one bill as a point of reference for people to be able to review and give comments to us. And House Bill 5 is the result of a lot of give and take and a lot of negotiations with the cities, the coalition, to make sure that we get the very best legislation that we can.
There was also some technical changes. Some things were being interpreted differently, so we put some clarification in there. But for the most part, the bill's pretty much the way it was.
Representative, you're a former mayor. The idea of a tax board, any board, you know, is a tough sell, particularly a tax board. How are you getting around sort of the controversy or the negative connotation of just a board making decisions on all of this?
Well, you know, when we started on this process, the logical person to go to would have been the tax department, the tax commissioner. We felt it was far more important to have participation by the cities. So that board is made up of representatives of the CCA, RETA, and then the cities based on population. So both the small and the large cities are represented there. And again, the goal has been to be inclusive, that they are part of their destiny.
And look exactly what that board does. The board is really there to, if there's a question on 2 cities doing things differently, how do you resolve that discrepancy? So we could go to the back to the state, have them do it, or we could take it to the legislature. So we thought a group of cities getting together, solving their own issues, was a logical way to do it. I mean, we're not taking power away; we're really empowering cities with that board.
How have negotiations been going? I mean, do you think you're making any leeway, or do you think you're going to get to a point where you're just going to have to go forward?
I think we've made tremendous progressive progress there, and you know, we talked about House Bill 5 as the result of a lot of those negotiations and interested party meetings. 2 weeks ago, we met with the Northeast mayors, and I think we're down to 3 or 4 issues that we need to continue to work on, but we're very close.
Can you say what those 3 or 4 issues are?
I'll be happy to provide you with that information. I don't have it before me right now. I've been a little involved in the Finance Committee. I'm sorry.
Do you know generally, though, is there an top issue or 2 that still needs to be worked out based on your conversations with mayors around the state?
I think the throwbacks and how that's interpreted is important, and then the 20-day rule. When you look at our original goal was 30 days. The cities want 12 days, so we came up with 20 days. There's a lot of misinformation on that people think that those first 20 days are tax-free, when in fact they aren't. It just further defines the preponderance of a day to know where people owe taxes. It's a real issue when some type of business stops for lunch or to gas up, and a city official comes running after them saying, you owe me city income tax. So we're trying to make it a lot more user-friendly, to define it, and to be able to be responsive to what is easy for the cities to monitor, as well as what's appropriate for employees and employers that are working in these different municipalities.
Do you expect an amendment or a substitute bill once hearings get going to incorporate changes, anything that's changed since January when you introduced the bill?
I think that there will be changes, and that's not finally determined on the path that we're going to be proceeding with. But this is a partnership of a lot of different agencies to make sure we get the very best legislation that we can. That's why we continue to meet with cities and with the coalition to be able to determine what is best for the people of Ohio. And it's important too, you know, we talked about the number of members of the coalition. The employees are sometimes forgotten. And you're talking about thousands and thousands of employees that are filling out 25 or 30 forms on an annual basis, and it's very difficult for everyone.
Do you think there's a lot of misunderstanding with this bill? I mean, I keep seeing more and more of these local municipalities passing ordinances opposing it. I mean, do you think they're not understanding it, or is it just they're afraid there's going to be some kind of state control?
I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I want to emphasize centralized collection has never and is never part of the content of House Bill 5. We want to rely on the cities to do that how best they feel is efficient for them, and that's been a fear factor for a lot of cities. The loss of revenue, and again, we're trying to make this as revenue neutral as we possibly can, and you need to look holistically. There will be certainly benefits to cities as a result of this uniformity, and there will be some benefits to the businesses that aren't paying $15,000 a year to have these forms filled out on a quarterly and annual basis.
And I was just going to say, you go to some of the city council meetings, they're not asking for city input when they or not city business input on this. I mean, they're making unilateral decisions on what they think is best for them, and the businesses of their community and the taxpayers of their community need to be have their voice heard in this process too. So I think that resolution process could have been a lot better.
Change is difficult. It truly is.
I believe when I spoke last year to the city of Columbus, they had a real problem with the net operating loss carry forward because they are not one of the ones with currently the 5 years, and that was going to, they said, was going to be a significant revenue loss. Has that been, has that been addressed with Columbus?
It is being addressed and continues to be discussed that we come up with some appropriate language that there's a comfort level all the way around.
Now think about that real quick. The federal government says you should be allowed to carry that loss forward 20 years, and I think you can go back a few years. The state of Ohio says you can carry that loss 20 years. In the cities, it can be anywhere between 0 and 15. So that was another point of our compromise. This bill's full of compromises. 5 years, and then even at that, we're phasing that in over 5 years. And we're not going backwards starting the phase in. It will be from the point the bill goes into law, losses that first year go into effect. 20% can be carried over into the next year, 40 the following, 60, 80, and 100. So, as I say, it should not be as painful as many want to believe it is.
Has there ever been any discussions about making cities whole that are going to lose funds under this, either maybe through local government funds or some other mechanism where the state will ease them into this?
I think we're open to several discussions in that regard, and a lot of the challenge there is to determine and to confirm what those actual numbers are. There were misinterpretations, again, in 601 that everything had to be sent certified mail. I know one city I looked at was counting on a $60,000 expense just from that alone. That is not the situation, and we need to clarify in the big picture, certainly the gains and the losses, but we have been very earnest to make this as revenue neutral on all sides as possible.
As she just pointed out, we don't have the data on the city side to really understand their numbers. So that's one of the things of the bill is the sharing of the data so we can understand their numbers better.
And Jim, as you represent the Columbus Dispatch, and I know we have many other media members here, I would imagine each of you that are here are probably subject to municipal income tax collections in a lot of different jurisdictions that you may not even realize. As you travel to Columbus, to Dublin, to Grove City, to Dayton, that puts you all in that category, and I guess I could turn the question back to you. Do you think you're complying with the current laws on municipal income tax collection in the state of Ohio? Be interesting for you to pursue.
What's your timeline or hoped for timeline in terms of getting the bill finished?
This is a priority bill in the Ohio House. It's House Bill number 5. Hearings will begin next week in Ways and Means, and I hope that we can continue in negotiations, good faith negotiations, to come up with the very best legislation that we possibly can to address this very unfortunate and un-business-friendly situation in the state of Ohio.
Do you have a goal for when you hope to see it enacted? Is it this year?
I'd be happy in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, if we get it through this General Assembly, I think I'll be happy, and I think cities in this across the state and taxpayers will be very happy.
Is there a deadline in terms of passing it so that you impact, or you either one, give folks enough time to change and get ready for it, or you impact it at the point where you want it to? Do you have a deadline on when you need to see it passed so that it doesn't overlap some deadlines for tax filing or anything that you're trying to hit?
This is a constantly evolving process, and some of the drafters of this legislation, and I'll primarily point to Tom Zano, who is the former tax commissioner for the state of Ohio, and his associates are very mindful of those deadlines, and we will be working again with what is the most appropriate for cities, the employers, and the employees of Ohio.